Welcome back to the ZERT Coffee and Chaos podcast, the show where we talk about anything and everything relating to what it means to be a survivalist and a prepared individual in today's society. I'm your host, Chris Bartigo, ZP002. On the show with me today, a new guest, a special guest, a guest star, if you will, Tess. Tess, and I'm not even just go ahead and pronounce your last name for me, because as long as I've known you, you're Tess to me.
I just say Salb.
Okay, there it is. Tess Salb. Now, some of you folks might recognize Tess from a video that came out earlier this year when we were at SHOT Show. Tess works for High Vis, and she's been a friend of mine for quite a few years, all the way back to good old Pittsburghers, or no, that's Permani Brothers, right?
Yes,
Permani Brothers in Pittsburgh. Yeah, gosh. It's so funny. There's like two good stories I tell about that place. But anyway, Tess, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I always, I've got a fair share of repeat culprits, if you will, that are on the show. A couple of co-hosts that join me every week, and then we like to bring in some guest stars, if you will, or some guest personalities. When it comes to the show, we've had, ZERT members on. We just had Rocco on. Kyle Lamb has been on the show. Just a couple of different people, just to get a little bit of a different take on it. And it's, the show is, when we open it up and talk about being a prepared individual and a survivalist, I mean, ZERT has been a very firearm centric community for as long as it's been around, but I've tried to expand into more than just that. So when I saw that you were on a podcast, I was like, well, wait a minute, she hasn't been on my podcast yet, so we got to make that happen. So was the one that you did just a couple of weeks ago, was that your first podcast that you've been on?
No, I've been on more than a handful of them over the years.
Okay.
But yeah. I always enjoy getting on new ones and, reaching new audiences and just kind of learning more about what's out there. And
yeah, good. So Tess, give us a little bit of a background on you. Obviously, some of the listeners know that I've worked in the firearms industry for quite some time, and obviously that's where we met, in the firearms industry. But why don't you give a elevator pitch as to who you are and what you do?
Well, I'm currently the marketing director of High Vis Shooting Systems. I'm also a competitive shooter and firearms instructor. And I got my start in the firearms world at the age of 12 through the sport of modern pentathlon, which was at the time shooting, fencing, running, swimming, shooting, fencing, and horseback riding.
Wow.
And yes, so I was 12 when I entered that program, and it had yet to be in the Olympics for women.
Okay.
And so when I was going into college, our coaches recommended that we go into individual sports. So shooting was one that I had excelled at through pentathlon. And I started shooting through the International Pistol Program. Oh. And won Junior Olympics a year after I was in the program, made the national team for the United States. Went to the World Championships in 1998, competed all over Europe that summer. And then whenever I graduated from college, I went to the 2000 Olympic trials, did not make the team. And my parents said, must get a job. So when I graduated college, I applied for the firearms industry and started my first job in my career with the National Rifle Association.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Yeah. So since then, I've been with multiple manufacturers and gotten to meet amazing people like you. So.
Oh, well, listen, I appreciate that. And folks, I tell you, she's probably just saying that because we're on camera right now. But no, so yeah, that's true. I met you. It was before Rio, right?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah. I can't remember what brand it was, but when it comes to this industry, and we all stay in it, and we just end up working for a couple of different manufacturers over the course of our time in it. And I think that's great, because it allows somebody to be multifaceted when it comes to being effective. And, the relationships that we build just continue to travel with us, whether it's, 3 or 4 different companies down the road. And that's what I do love about the firearms industry. you know, I haven't worked for somebody since 2020, and I owned a business, and then I bought ZERT a year into owning that business. And when I did, I've always been a part of ZERT. I've always been around and involved with ZERT because, but just from the manufacturer side. I mean, I
Mhm.
remember when I was working at Dewey Rods, is, when we started getting them as an affiliate vendor, just like Highvis is an affiliate now. So I've always been involved in, the original owner, the founder of ZERT. He stepped out to do stuff with executive protection, and he was doing some contracting, security contracting for NASA. And it was during the pandemic, and I just saw a real need for this community to grow. And that's kind of why I got involved. But so I was always wondering what the Shoot for Gold. I mean, I thought it was, something to do with Olympics or that. And I guess I never asked about that because we were always
So
just,
yeah, that dates back to AOL.
oh, look at that. America
For those
Online.
of you that may
Perfect.
remember that thing, yeah.
Wow.
Uh,
Boom. You've
but yeah,
got mail.
it's shoot the number 4 gold because there
Yeah,
were 4 gold medals that you could win in a quadrennium. And so I was young and had to come up with something,
that's
and that
it.
was, I mean, I was positive mindset through and through.
Yeah. Mine was Mufasa. I don't know how it ended. Somebody called me that once, and I was just like, okay, that's what that is on America Online. So, whew, back in the day, that was bad stuff. And now we just go by just regular old Gmail. Um, so, so that sport. Now, I'm kind of familiar with the sports in the Olympics. I mean, I might hang it up for the next Olympics and just try breakdancing because apparently like that's you can easily get in that. But is that sport still in the Olympics, or I don't
I would
remember hearing?
so the version that I competed in was very much the original, as close to the original sport as possible. It is still in the Olympics, but
Okay,
it is a variation of it. So the history, kind of a modified version of the history, was that it is the 5 sports that a soldier would have to have accomplished in the time of war in order to, I guess, survive and fight. And the story goes that a letter needs to be delivered from one camp to the next. And so a soldier starts out on horseback. He
okay,
gets into a gunfight, runs out of ammunition. His horse gets killed. He sword fights. He swims a river and runs to his destination. And so
that's amazing. That's
those are the
amazing.
5 skills that a soldier had to be proficient at. And actually, General Patton was one of the most famous modern pentathletes of all times.
Well, look at
And
that.
when I first started modern pentathlon, we were shooting 22s,
Okay,
22 long rifles, and it was very much bullseye style. And then because of the international ideas on firearms, they ended up changing it to air pistol. So it was kind of a variation of the original. And
ah,
then now it is, um, was it fencing, swimming, and then it was horseback riding, and then running and laser shooting. And they would run laps because it was more of like a biathlon kind of at the
yep,
end.
yep.
And then after I think the 2020 Olympics, um they had some abuse on the horses because you do not provide your own horse for modern pentathlon. And I was a horseback rider, so my strength was horseback riding. I could ride
Okay,
any horse, and since I never owned my own. And so that was one thing, is you just kind of draw a number out of a hat and you would be provided with a horse. So it was kind of
okay.
riding an unknown horse because
Yeah,
you
that's
don't necessarily bring your own horses into battle, or at least you didn't back in the day.
right, 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 right. Yeah, okay.
So yeah, so I guess there was some type of abuse, questionable treatment, I will say, between,
Uh,
I believe it was the German team, and so they are now taking horseback riding out, and latest I've heard, it's going to switch to obstacle course racing.
okay. All right. Yeah, that's what just a quick hit the old Google machine here and it says yes, fencing, freestyle swimming, equestrian, show jumping, laser pistol shooting and cross country. Equestrian will be replaced by a form of obstacle course racing at
Okay.
the summer 2028 Olympics. So there it is. The
Yeah.
laser shooting is also questionable. I
It
mean,
it's I happen to catch I don't watch it anymore. I've kind of
right.
pulled myself out of that. But I saw it at a restaurant one time, I think in 2020, and saw what was happening, and it was interesting. But I think that's the one thing that our industry has completely tried to avoid having everything turn into. And
Yeah.
so for me and those people who are Second Amendment friendly, we're kind of like
I'm out.
stepping away from there and
Yeah.
playing the
I,
games where we're actually
Yeah, yeah.
shooting.
I mean, I know that a lot of people were unhappy with the Olympics this year, um, from the opening ceremonies to the message being put out there. I didn't much watch it. I did hear about a couple of sports after it was all said and done, and I did go back to YouTube and watch it, like the bouldering and the that was very interesting to watch. And it was exciting to watch, and that was about it. I know. I also watched Sha'Carri Richardson just dominate in the track
Track and
division.
field, yeah.
Um, but yeah, there's a lot of things that are nerfed, if you will, these
Mhm.
days, and it's just trash. Just for documentation here, folks, because this show will air at some point. Today is November 5th. 2024. It is election day. And at the time of this recording, we don't have an idea of who the president is. So it'll be great to see. Well, I'm sorry, who the president will be. I don't think the president himself knows who he is, but I digress. So we are unsure of what the outcome will be. At the time of this recording being published, we will hopefully have a president elect in place, and the world has not burned. But who knows? We'll see what happens. Stand by to stand by. It's a crazy time, and listen, all I say is, if to everybody that's listening, thank you for being here. We appreciate this. Just to get a little bit of admin stuff out of the way, Tess. As you're all aware, we publish our shows on Thursdays on Spotify and Apple, and then we release the video portion of it afterwards on YouTube. If you have not already gone to YouTube to follow the channel, please do that. Like and subscribe. Hit the bell button so you get notified when we put out new videos like this, and like the one we just did on the rising ammo prices. So with that being said, let's get back to the good stuff, the show. Did you already head out and vote?
I did. I
Yeah.
actually voted last week.
Okay. Yeah.
I was teaching a class in Florida this past weekend, and so I was a little concerned about not being able to make it back in time, and it was
Smart.
important enough for me to go out. So I took time during my lunch and went over, and it took me about half an hour. So it was
Good.
perfect.
Very
Yeah.
good. So I was actually we were in Oklahoma the weekend before the election. We were teaching a class as well. What class were you teaching?
Intro to competitive shooting for women.
Very nice. Very
Yeah.
nice. How did that go?
It was good. It was good. Yeah, it was pretty much just the basics of just kind of a basic rule set, pretty much, the safety rules of competition and how not to get DQ'd and what different types of scoring means and what types of skills that you need in order
Okay.
to excel in different ones. And then, pretty much mainly ask all the questions and read the rule book. So
Okay. Now that's great. But so where did you teach that class?
I taught this in Gainesville, Florida for A Girl and a Gun. It was
Okay.
one of their chapters. One of their facilitators asked me to come out. She's done some training with me, and so she asked me to come out and do something special just for her girls. So it's the first
Okay.
time I've taught it, but I think it's going to be something that might be of interest moving forward to a lot of people. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
And I think that's great. And obviously, was it a 2-day class or 2 days of a 1-day class?
It was 2 days.
It
They
was
could take pistol. The second day was 2-gun, so we did rifle and
okay.
pistol. So
Great.
they could choose to do one or the other. But if they did the first, I required them to do, or if they did the second, I'm sorry, I required them to do the
Do it first.
first,
Great.
just because essentially we just added the rifle on the second day.
Good.
So
Very
I
good.
just kind of did a little bit more advanced
Okay.
work.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And was it an indoor range or an outdoor?
This was an outdoor range. So all year long, the past couple months specifically, we've been watching the hurricanes, and I I was like, "All right,
Yeah.
it's a go, is it not a go? Is it a go? Is it not a go?" So we didn't really push hard for, a bunch of advertising or anything because I was like, "You know what? I'm fine doing just a few people. I'll come either
Right.
way."
Yep.
Yeah, and we've picked a weekend, and thank goodness Raphael decided to come and start rear his head now
Yeah.
and not like last week. So
So, are you familiar with, I'm going to butcher his last name, but his first name is Gorka. Uh, I believe his last name is Ibanez. He's a competition shooter. He's a
Mhm.
competition pistol shooter. And he is down in Florida at the SIG outpost down there.
Okay.
I think it's like the Volusia County Gun Club or something like that.
I He sounds
Uh,
familiar, but I don't know him personally. Mhm.
Yeah, I met him last year when I was there for a VTAC pistol class. Um, and I went to that range, and I'm supposed to go down there next month for a VTAC rifle class. And so they're right outside of Daytona.
Okay.
And the most hilarious video ever he posted probably about a month and a half ago. It was after a hurricane,
Uh-huh.
and he went to go shoot a stage, or just shoot a couple of drills on the range, and he pulled up to the bay on a jet ski.
Oh my goodness.
The range was so underwater, he pulled up on a jet ski, drew his pistol. I mean, it was something that Lanny would do, right? Like,
Right, right.
whether like riding on a horse, like on a
Hey,
barrel, jumping over, doing a
gotta have fun with
cartwheel. Right,
it.
exactly. So
Right.
he pulls up on a jet ski and he shoots the state, or he shoots the drill. I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. That's wild.
That's
But
funny.
funny enough, we were in Oklahoma this past weekend for a
Mhm.
CQB class.
Oh, no.
Oh yeah.
You got hit by those
Oh yeah.
storms.
Oh yeah. So
Oh, goodness.
Friday, and some say that I look tan. I know that I got color on Friday because Friday we were setting up the range, and we were at our home range, if you will,
Mhm.
out in Rose, Oklahoma, called Recon by Fire.
Okay.
Great range. The owner out there, Bud, is awesome. He's a ZERT member, and he goes out to 1,100 yards. So if you want to learn some precision shooting, that's where you go. They do PRS out there. I think they just had the Bianchi Cup out there.
Okay.
Um, and he built us a 50-yard range for what we do. So we went out there on Friday to set up the range, and it was great. I was like, oh my God, they're talking about rain. I'm getting a tan over here. Like, this is awesome. And so Saturday we show up to the range, and it's just gloomy. It's gloomy and cool. And there was a couple of times where we got rained on.
Mhm.
We get off the range, and me and my instructor were looking for something to eat, and we made the horrible choice of finding a Golden Corral. But when in Rome, we went and hit the old buffet up. And as we're sitting there, like, the rain starts coming, and I see the lightning, the sky is lighting up, and I was just like, oh, this is going to be bad. So we're
Yeah.
watching, we're watching, we're watching. Now, the owner of the range is like, if it rains, it rains. If it, but lightning will shut us down. So we're like, okay. Now we filled the class up. I mean, it was 12 students. Um, and we're like, I don't know what to do here. So it's an hour drive from Tulsa to there. So we had some time to kind of formulate a plan. We get to the range, the entire shoot house that was built out of sticks and plastic was just gone.
Oh,
It was just torn down, wood was broken. So at that time, we gave the students the option of setting it all back up and training in the rain all day, or um, going back to the Oklahoma ZERT headquarters and setting up a center fed and a corner fed room and running dry all day, just doing dry
mhm.
fire drills, doing 4-man stacks. And they all opted for that. But they also asked if we could set up a live fire again for a future date where they could take it. And I was like, yeah, we'll
Oh,
take care
that's
of
good.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe the students loved it. I mean,
Oh
they
yeah.
were running four-man stacks. They were clearing corners. I mean, they were running points of domination. They were running free flow by the end of the day, and working with people that are part of this organization, but they don't all know each other. Like the guys that came
Mhm.
in from Kansas, and they all met people for the first time. So,
Right.
yeah, we were. I was like, I don't. Are we going to get out of here? But apparently, Oklahoma doesn't just. They don't get scared about tornadoes. They're like, yeah, no, we're flying in that shit, no
It's
problem.
the
So
season.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I was just like, I
Unfortunately, I'm not sure they were ready for what happened, but yeah, for sure.
no, yeah. So Tulsa didn't get hit, but Oklahoma City apparently got hit a little bit. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean these natural disasters are just that, right? And with ZERT being a prepared and a survivalist company, we've always said that when ZERT first formed, it was zombie eradication response team,
Mhm.
and they used zombie as a metaphor to be prepared for any man-made or natural disaster. And you can only prepare so much when it comes to one of these natural disasters. With hurricanes, you get a fair amount of warning where they're going to come, right? Where
Mhm.
landfall is going to hit, you can kind of determine how strong it's going to be. Tornadoes aren't that. Tornadoes do kind of just spin up real quick, and then you are in a world of hurt.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and there's something to be said though too for training with your equipment in the elements because that's how you truly understand. But then kind of as you're saying is that there's a that line where the elements are too much.
well,
You can't
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can't like forego your safety to try to figure out like what does my equipment do in the rain? What does it do in the
Right.
cold? What does it do, in extreme heat? I mean, is the oil I'm using correct or is it
Right.
become gummy? I mean,
Oh yeah, for sure.
so
But
yeah.
and then where we kind of took it is if you were prepared for a zombie apocalypse, you were prepared for a hurricane
Mhm.
pre and post, or a tornado pre and post hurricane, or civil unrest pre and post. Meaning, you lose power, you're not freaking out because you've got lanterns, they're battery powered, you fire them up, you're good to go. You may have a generator, great, you're good to go. You can build a fire, so you may not be able to use your stove or your microwave, but you can grill up a steak or whatever the case may be. You're prepared for all of that and what the rebuilding process looks like. So, with that being said, if you choose to live in Tornado Alley or you choose to live in Florida, you just have to understand that tornadoes are going to be a way of your life. Hurricanes are going to be a way of life. Make sure you have gas cans, make sure you have a generator, make sure that, when a hurricane is coming, you get to the gas station and you fill up your cars beforehand. So, yeah, while it was a little bit scary, they just didn't seem to be like, I woke up to a sound on my phone that normally is like when the alarm goes off here. And I was
Mhm.
like, oh shit, somebody broke into the building. And I look at my phone and it's like, no, tornado warning. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's different. I don't know.
Right.
What am I doing here? Do I get underneath the desk or what? What are we doing? So
Yeah, it's definitely
crazy.
interesting, and I feel like Tornado Alley is kind of changing a little bit too. I'm in Dallas, Texas, and we've gotten a
Right.
lot more tornadoes in the past couple years than we have before. And so it is interesting, but like those warnings, are good to kind of make sure that you understand what they are, where to go, and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially
Absolutely
especially
insane.
like you said, you're in a hotel room and you don't I think too many times when I travel, I take those things for granted. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'll figure out where the stairwell is later," and it's like, maybe
Yeah.
I should actually take that.
100%.
How many doorways down is that stairwell so that I can just count
Yeah.
doorways? I don't have to talk about,
Right. Right. Are you
the
carrying a
visual cue.
flashlight? Right. Like, I
Right.
mean, so, and that's a great point you just made there, Tess. And it's probably going to be another podcast that we do. We're all prepared on our home field advantage, right? But what happens when you travel and you don't have your get home bag, your go bag, your cachet of stuff at your house or your office, wherever you work? How do you become acclimated to that, and how do you become prepared for that? So that's a great topic for another time. That being said, I mean, I'm sure you carry daily, right?
I
Are you
do
an
not as much. I work from home, so I'm
Okay.
kind
Right.
of
So your everyday carry, I mean, yeah, I listen,
yeah.
I get it. When I worked from home, it's hard to carry every day when you don't put pants on.
Yes.
When I had to start when I had to start going to the
It's
office, I
okay
was
for
like,
you to
"Oh
say
man."
that.
Yeah, well, right. I mean, it's my show. I can say it. Whatever. Um uh yeah, yeah. So, but it's sitting there on the desk, and it is what it is. When you decide to
Mhm.
leave for the day, you carry.
Right.
I mean, it's awkward walking around in, boxers and a fanny pack. But thank God we don't have to jump on Zooms. But
Right?
getting into a professional setting, obviously you have to be more aware of what you need to
Mhm.
do. That being said, I mean, when I travel with a firearm, and I travel with my EDC setup, and we've talked about that in other videos on YouTube, and on other shows. My carry pistol, a flashlight, a knife, a pen, a pad, all of the things. And I still, obviously, when I'm traveling for work, I carry those as well.
Mhm.
So that's a part of it. But I don't
Yeah.
have my get home bag. I don't have my
Right.
level up gear,
Well,
as I
the
call
thing
it.
the thing too for women, I would say, I don't know how many female members that you have, but hopefully many of the men have wives. If they carry, the big thing too is I don't carry the same purse at home that I do on travel. My wardrobe at home is not always the same wardrobe that I have when I travel. And so those are types of things too, whenever you carry on the road or you're prepared, that you've got to like take into account of, because you are
Right.
limited on what you bring.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, exactly. You can only bring so much, and do you sacrifice your toothbrush for 550 paracord? I haven't cracked the code. Um, but yeah, maybe it's a little bit more fortunate for me. I'm traveling to a state where I'm going to meet other members of ZERT who are just as prepared, if not more prepared than me. So I don't have to worry about it. They've got the ammunition, they've got the tourniquet,
Mhm.
the med kit, this, that, and the other thing. So that's a little bit of a sigh of relief when traveling for ZERT. But when we go out to Vegas, we're all out there, and you can only bring so much, and I have to
Yes.
sacrifice some of the stuff for camera equipment and crap like that. When you know it is what it is. we
Right.
we talk about we go back and forth on this show. One of the guys that's a co-host on here is Jamie Franks. You know Jamie. Do you know
Mhm.
Jamie?
I
Competition
think
shooter.
so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And we always go back and forth about rifle versus pistol. And this past weekend's class was a rifle class doing CQB, and I want to make sure that we put on a pistol class next when it comes to this. Um, Admittedly, I don't train with my rifle as much as I train with my pistol, because I carry a pistol every day,
Mhm.
most of the day. That's what I
Right.
have on me. Um, and I want to make sure that I am as prepared and skilled with that as I can be. And do I get out there and shoot enough with it? No, I don't. I mean, I
Right.
envy people that have ranges in their backyards or get to the range. How often are you shooting these days?
I'm doing a lot more instructing. I try to I'm
Okay.
shooting a match about once a month.
Okay.
And then I've been teaching a lot more classes this year, but that's the one thing that I always tell people. I always ask, who's here for just getting started? Who's here for personal defense? Who's here for competition? And who's here, because their friend drugged them here.
Sure.
And pretty much in the end, I just tell them, I'm like, hey guys, I kind of run my class like a competition class, because in the end, regardless of your reason, competing and finding your local match and getting involved in your local range is the best way to be consistent in your training. Is
Oh
the
yeah.
best way to kind of like test your skills. And
Uh-huh.
I have a couple friends and the ladies this past weekend. There's a bunch of organizations that do a lot of good job about training people and,
Sure.
go to this class and go to this class and go to this class. And my friend asked me, she said, what do you think my next class should be? And I said, well, I'm going to ask you, what are you doing to test your skills that you've learned in the classes you've already taken?
Oh, great. Great
And she's
question.
not she's not doing anything. She's
No.
just going from class to class to class to class to class. And I'm like, that's great. That's fun. But at some point, it's important to like put down that boundary and say, hey, okay, now I'm actually going to put these skills to use, because it's important to understand what you've truly learned and to what level you've learned it at and how it applies.
Oh,
You
that
know,
is perfect. That's a great point, Tess. And I can tell you that I fall victim to that myself.
hmm it's
I
fun
mean,
and it's easy to be the student, but and so I always encourage, regardless of it's, if it's competitive shooting, or even testing your skills of, like you were saying, is your preparedness anywhere, just kind of take evaluation where you are, or put yourself through scenarios, if you're on the road, and say, if this happened, what would I do? Just test yourself,
oh yeah,
or find different ways to where you can,
yeah,
be it teaching somebody else. Because
yeah,
I always, in my classes, I always teach, and then I have them teach another student, because the whole thing is, I mean, some people learn by hearing, some people learn by reading, and some people learn by doing.
yeah,
And so I try to put all of my students through each one of those so that they can learn in the best way possible. But if they can't repeat it to another student, if they can't identify the issue and repeat it to another student, then they haven't learned.
right,
So
right,
the only thing anybody ever does is to test themselves, is to take somebody else under their wing and teach them the way. That
yeah.
sometimes is all it takes, just to be determine whether or not you've learned your skills.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great point. So going back to the question that you asked, when you asked them what they were there for, you asked them that this past weekend
I ask them
Well,
that in all of my
in
classes.
all of your
And
classes.
yeah, and the reason is because I always try to, when I'm instructing, I try to tell people what the drill is for and how it can be applied to their specific road or their path. Because while they're all very similar, I want them to get in that mindset of, you know, I am here for concealed carry. I am here for personal defense. I am here for home defense. And so I'll try to give a scenario where this might apply, to where they can kind of visualize it and say, okay, this is why I'm doing this. I always
Yeah,
try to give my students the why,
yeah.
rather than just being like, hey, I'm just out here to do this drill. It's like,
Oh,
we're going
great.
to do this drill. This is what the intent and the purpose of this drill is. And this is why we're doing it. And then this is how you can apply it.
Okay.
I mean, we can't, you can't address every situation out
No, of
there, but
course
if you
not.
can give them a real world scenario that might be more realistic to them in
Yeah,
their journey or their road, it to me, it tends to help they just pick up the content and the curriculum a little bit better.
yeah. And that makes sense. So, what do you typically see as the answer that is given? Is it a variety of things? Does it mainly come into, I want to get into competition shooting, or I'm an everyday carrier and I want to be better? Do you get a variation of answers there?
Yeah, I mean, I teach mostly women's classes.
Yeah,
For handgun. So most of the classes, or most of the students, actually, it's kind of split between personal defense and just wanting to learn.
perfect.
Typically, they have been taught by their husband, or kind of thrown into it, or their husband keeps taking them out to the range, but they don't want to learn. They don't want to take that fight home, so they understand.
Right. I
I'm going
get
to
it.
learn from someone else.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I get it. Sure,
And
makes sense.
so, yeah, so I would say most of the women actually, it's because they want to learn, or it's for personal defense. But then whenever I teach them the benefits of competition, and that those types of things, and kind of explain to them, like, hey, here's a community of like-minded individuals for you to join, to ask questions, and to be a part of, so that you can learn more and expand your
Yeah.
horizons within this environment.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. I'm so glad you said that. That's exactly what we talk about when we talk about ZERT. I mean, that's what this is. This is a community of like-minded individuals
Mhm.
who want access and knowledge that helps them better protect their friends, their family, and their loved ones.
Right.
And like I said, it's mainly or it has been very firearms focused, but I'm trying to bring other aspects of that into the forefront. So medical, I stress more than anybody, well, or more than a lot of people, that how important medical is versus just having a firearm. Getting a firearm, getting your concealed carry permit, whether you need one or whether you live in a constitutional carry state, and loading a magazine of 15 up and strapping it in your waistband does not make you invincible. Number one, it does not solve all of the problems. If you have an instrument to put holes in somebody, you better have instruments to plug those holes just as much. Carrying a tourniquet, having access to a medical bag, an IFAC, whatever the case may be. This is something that Jamie put out there, and I've used it, started to use it. I'm going to be 50 in a couple of weeks, and so I'm like 18,000 days old or something like that. And I am 0 for 18,000 having to use my firearm in a self-defense situation.
Yep.
But that number is not 0 for 18,000 on having to use medical skills or having to use survival skills like starting a fire or, putting on a bandage or performing some kind of medical situation. So that's why I implore people to use that.
Great.
And think about how many days old you are and what skill set you used the most.
Right. Well, like you said, those are all skills. So just because you did it once doesn't necessarily mean that you will
Exactly.
retain it
Right.
or that it will come back to you when you need it quickly. And
Yeah.
also, I mean, if you're talking about medical equipment, making sure that it isn't expired, making sure that it's also readily
Oh, yeah.
available. So, I mean, if you keep it in a specific place in your car and you don't check regularly that it's still there, if you have a wife, kids, anybody else that borrowed your car, if it's been moved, like that's
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of important to know. Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
that
for
you can
sure.
react quickly. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And you brought up a great point about checking for expired meds. I mean, I just did a show about that, or I'm not a show, a video about medical kits, and
Mhm.
we going through the entire medical kit and all the medication in it. You got to make sure that that stuff has not expired. Tylenol, acetaminophen, all of that stuff has an expiration date on it, and easy enough to swap out, which is fine. Gauze pads, you're fine there, and whatnot. But very important. And
Yeah.
those skills, medical stuff, building a fire, preparing food, all of that, or building a shelter, all of that can be done without needing uh, up to 1,000 rounds of ammunition, a range, hearing protection, eye protection. You can learn to build a fire in your fireplace by using a ferro rod and, feather sticks. You can build a shelter with duct tape and a tarp out in your backyard.
Right.
Um,
Well, I
just
think
get
that, in Texas in 2021, we had that huge freeze.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Yep.
I don't have like a very extensive like survival background necessarily, but I did have enough to know to fill my bathtub before the storm came so that I could
Yeah.
flush my toilets. I knew to have all my water there.
Yeah.
And I was fine for 2 weeks. I had all the food I needed. I had everything, but I was amazed at the number of people who had kind of become so comfortable and complacent. I mean, even burning candles or like, having bricks to where you could put the candle in or a terracotta pot, that type
Yep.
of thing to like to create heat. It doesn't have to be fancy
No.
to work.
Right.
And a lot of times I think that we also think about survival things as being out there.
Yep.
But for me, that was very much right in my apartment.
Oh, yeah.
It
Yeah.
was right here. And so like I don't have it. Everybody's like, why don't you have a generator? I'm like, because I live in an apartment. Like
Right.
I'm not going to have a generator. So like
Right.
what I need to do for me is totally different than somebody that needs to be, that has a house or something. But
Sure.
I don't think a lot of people had ever even thought about that as far
No.
as what to do in Texas. But that for me was a perfect example of don't just learn what you need to learn out there. You got to learn what you need within your own walls too.
Oh,
for
yeah.
survival.
100%.
Yeah.
And it's funny you bring up Texas, because I remember NBS maybe 2015. It was a February show. I don't know if you were there, but it's when Texas and Fort Worth, they had snow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the state was they were shut down. They didn't know what to do. I'm surprised I got out. I remember calling a taxi to take me to the airport, and I screwed up and I flew out of love. And I remember the guy going on the highway. First of all, he shows up, he's in like a minivan, and his wipers are like just iced up, like wiping on ice. And I'm just
Right.
like, and the guy's, like leaned down, looking through the one spot. He opened the door. I said, listen, do you know how to drive in this shit? I said, because I'm from New England. And if I have to drive, just let me. He was,
Right.
no, 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 I got it. I mean, this dude is doing like 65, 70 on the highway. Like it's not really
Like it's not frozen.
not, it's not frozen.
Right.
There's no plows, so it's just pushing the
No.
snow in between the lanes. The dude's crossing through. I'm like, we're gonna die here. So we get to the airport miraculously. I walk out. I was like, hey buddy, let me give you a life hack here. I grab one of his windshield wipers and I lift it up and I smash it down on the windshield and it breaks all of the ice off of the windshield wiper. And I'm like, there you go. Now you can see out of your windshield. Whew,
Right.
that was horrible. But my point is, nobody was prepared for that.
Mm-mm.
They had snow in North Carolina. Nobody is prepared for that. And can you be prepared for something like that if the town or the city that you're in? I mean, you're maybe not, but I think it was that same winter freeze in 2021 where people were stranded on the highway overnight.
Well, we lost, I mean, people died. We had
Right,
hundreds of people die. It was because we didn't have power for 2 weeks.
right. And I
And
believe,
it was below 20 below, yeah.
yeah,
So
and there
yeah.
were, yeah. And so they had nothing for cold weather in their vehicle. And they
Mm-mm.
got stranded on the side of or they got stranded in cars on the highway and they couldn't go anywhere. They couldn't be rescued. We drive the
We
point.
had the 150 car pileup too.
Yes, that's what,
Yeah,
yeah,
in
yeah,
Fort Worth.
right. And that's when we drive the message home that self rescue is a thing that you need to be concerned with. Having a blanket, having that go bag, having that medical bag in your vehicle is important. You work from home. Is it necessary because you're not traveling to work every day? Maybe not. But if you decide that you're going to go out and about, you should have those things in your vehicle.
Well,
And people,
yeah.
yeah,
So
they don't think about it.
for me, it's more so of even if I don't travel to work or daily, to me, it's more so of, I mean, I live in an apartment complex.
Right.
It could burn down and
Yep.
I might need a place to go. And if I have that stuff in my car, or I live in the city of Dallas, like in the city. So if
Right.
there's something were to happen, if riots break out or anything random in the winter, I should be able to get in my car and head west,
Right.
right? Get myself out of the city. What do I need to have that available to me?
Right.
I don't live in a state of like, oh my gosh, this is going to happen. However,
No.
I live in comfort knowing if it happens, I'm at least prepared enough to get myself to a location where I can come up with what's next.
So I'm glad that you said that, Tess. And a lot of people think exactly like that.
Mhm.
But there are things that don't come into play that that people don't often consider. So we talk about on this show often about having a plan and then
Mhm.
having a contingency plan to that, because the chances are something in that plan is going to go sideways and you're going to have to kind of course correct.
Right.
My employee, he was very much like that. And where he worked and where his wife worked, there was a good bit of distance between there. And he was like, oh yeah, I'm going to go get her. I was like, okay, well, what happens if you can't? If we get hit by an EMP, whatever your plan is, throw it out the window.
Right.
Because you're going to rely solely or heavily on your plan with having the ability to access information.
Mhm.
And when that information is gone because your cell phone is a brick, well,
Well,
then
actually, my plan doesn't include information. It includes no technology.
okay, then
Yeah,
that's great.
which another one of my plans includes my vehicle not being functional.
Right. Well, perfect.
And yeah,
That's
so I
awesome.
don't have just one plan. I lived in
Okay.
Washington, D.C. for 18 years during
Okay.
9/11,
Good.
sniper. I've got multiple plans, but
Multiple
all I'm
plans.
saying as far as like having
Yeah.
comfort knowing that if my car is packed, that is one option for me.
Okay, great. Good.
So
And that's awesome to hear. See, listen, you're ready for ZERT. All I got to tell you, I mean, the whole time we've been sitting here and you just burying the lead that you are the most prepared person. I love it. Um, but you bring up good points. It's not just one plan. You've got a plan for obviously if you need to shelter in place or if you need to bug out. If you need to
mhm.
go all Wolverines and head to the mountains and group of friends and, do that, then that's part of it. Who does it involve? Like, if I need to get to my loved ones, if I need to load them up in the vehicle and head out, where are we going? Or are we just sheltering in place? You know, all of these people that have multiple pallets of ammunition in their house, well, that's great, but good luck moving.
Yeah,
Like,
you're
good
not
luck
gonna be
moving that.
loading that up with you,
Yeah.
right?
My bug out plan includes the Ruger 1022, the breakdown version that it goes in a backpack, and two bricks of 10,000 rounds. And you can carry that relatively easily. And that's what that plan looks like. We talk about it all the time. And that's what I alluded to before with the rifle versus the pistol. I carry a pistol on me with a spare mag.
Mhm.
And what I have on me gets me to my vehicle. What I have in my vehicle gets me to my house or to the office, and what I have in my house or office gets me a little bit further. That little bit further is determined by what's happening. Obviously, if the buildings are burning down around me, I'm not staying in place,
Right.
but if there's hordes of people that are roaming the streets trying to do harm, I'm not going out to the streets. Um, having the mindset and understanding that walking out with your rifle slung to your back thinking that you are in a zombie apocalypse situation also is not the best idea. Having the plan to blend in or level up when needed, it's all part of it.
Mhm.
I'm glad to hear that you have it. Now, with
Yeah.
all of that being said, one of the other big things that people sometimes forget, like you said, your car is not included in that plan, is fitness and cardio, right? There's a lot of folks out there that, and I'm not saying I am the pillar of amazing embodiment of health. We're old and we're gray and we're tired and we don't run. But I can go, I stopped doing other bad shit, no longer. I was a smoker for quite a long time and we cut that out. But um, being able to walk for extended periods of time with gear is important. Now,
Right.
you do the tactical games, don't you?
I did, yes.
You did.
Yeah.
How was
Mhm.
that?
It was fun. It was
Yeah.
fun. It was yeah, it was good. It was a good test of fitness. It was a good test of your ability to, to shoot under stress. It definitely redefined what stress was while
Okay.
shooting. And it was a good test of your equipment as well.
Yeah. So now you've done it once. Would you do it again?
So I did it for 5 years. I did
Okay.
13 events. I podiumed, I think, 10 or 11, and I won seven.
Wow.
I
Awesome.
blew both of my ankles out last year and
Oh,
had to have ankle surgery in February. Yeah, doing the tactical games.
oh,
So
Jesus.
yeah, so
Now,
I'm kind of right now. I'm just trying to get back on my feet. Just staying on my feet is more important than like testing that. But I'm going to be doing some training with some people next year to try to get them into the sport because I also ran the Tactical Games University.
okay.
So I ran courses to help people get started into the program, and I'll be starting that back up in a different manner next year through my own
Okay.
company. Mhm.
Okay. Now, speaking of going back to you teaching, do you have your own training company or is it just you? They
I'm
they bring
getting
you in
I'm
and
getting it started, but it's just me.
okay. All
So,
right.
yeah,
All right.
the company is just me. I kind of fell into it. I mean, I've been training for tactical games, training people for tactical games for 5 years now, and then because I was a CrossFit instructor since 2000. I think I got certified in 2005, and I
Okay.
worked for CrossFit headquarters for a few years doing CrossFit endurance certifications.
Okay.
And so it just kind of naturally for me, competitive shooting and the fitness side of it all just kind of came together.
All right.
Uh, so yeah, so I did that. And then this year I just was asked to do some training down at Staccato Ranch. And so I did,
Very nice.
um, yeah, so I did some pistol courses for women, just to mainly women, but I work with men too.
Okay. I
Um,
wasn't sure.
so
I
yeah,
had to make sure. I mean,
yeah,
there's a lot of I don't think there's men only courses, and I know that women jump in, but sometimes women want to just learn at their own pace and without all of the I mean, some instructors just get straight up crazy and obnoxious out there. I mean,
yeah. I will say that, working with men and women, I do work with them different.
Sure.
Somebody was asking me something about the classes that I'd taken before, and I realized I have never taken a class with a female. I have never had a female firearms instructor ever. And most of my coaching, even through my Olympic years, have been with men. And so that's kind of all I've known is to,
Okay.
shoot like them, to train like them, and it's, but working with women, I'm learning that there is a little bit of a different way to approach it. But I think it's also beautiful because,
Oh yeah.
so I mean, that's what makes us both tick.
Of
We're both
course.
needed, but we are
Yeah.
a little bit different, and that's the beauty in it.
No, I think that is.
Yeah,
I think that it allows. I mean, a female, a woman getting into competition shooting or wanting to learn more off the bat doesn't need to be handled by 60 grit sandpaper. And
right.
that's what some of the instructors out there can be. I mean, I've seen them, I've trained with some of them,
Mhm.
and sometimes it takes a delicate touch over a rough hand, and I love that. I mean, I'll come down and take a class from you.
Yep. Well, great. I'd love to work with you.
Awesome. um so then we you and I could probably sit here and talk for 3 hours and just catch up. But we like to keep our shows at around an hour just because it's a nice little break from your day at work or whether you're traveling to work. So I don't want to go too long just for our listeners because they do catch us. I love getting the feedback from our listeners, but I do want to talk to you about high vis really quickly.
Yes.
Obviously, for all of those that are listening and are aware of it, HiViz is an affiliate, a ZERT affiliate member, and ZERT members do get a discount when purchasing sites. Now, handgun sites, rifle sites, shotgun sites, it that you cover them all, right? You want to give us a little bit of the HiViz shooting system,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, high-vis shooting systems. We
Yeah.
are manufacturer tritium and fiber optic sights for rifles, pistols, and shotguns. And some of our technology, we feature light wave sights, which are fiber optic sights that have interlocking light pipes. So you
Yeah.
can interchange them and reuse them based on your background and your lighting conditions. And then we also feature our tritium fiber optic sights for day and nighttime use, 24-hour illumination.
Okay.
And then next year, we will be introducing
Ooh, what do we get?
quite
What
a
do we get?
few new sites, which I
Okay.
think that might be of interest to you guys. One in
Okay.
particular, you're gonna have to stop by and see.
Okay, it's like
So,
I will be
yeah,
there. I'll be there. I was there this year. You introduced that new handgun site where, um,
Fast
it
Dot H3.
yeah, yeah. How's that going?
It's good. The
Yeah,
FastDot H3 is the newest sighting system. It's bridges the gap between iron sights and red dots.
yeah.
So it has a low profile design that makes for easier target acquisition because it mounts just like your traditional iron sights, but as a single dot system. So when you align the front dot behind the rear sight, the rear dot, a special lens in the rear sight magnifies the tritium and it appears to turn on.
Okay.
So you get the best of both
Huh.
worlds, and
Yep.
it's great for 24-hour use. Also, you can use it in your regular holsters, so you don't require a new holster, but it gives you a different sighting option instead of just your iron sights or a red dot.
Very good. Very awesome. I like that. When you showed me that one, I liked that a lot. I'm very excited to see what you are coming out with for SHOT Show 2025. I cannot believe I just said those words,
I
and I
know.
cannot believe we
It's
are. I mean, I know that I got the registration. I have not looked at it yet. I don't plan on looking at it until at least next month because, my God, it's here again.
it is right around the corner.
God,
I'm
that's
not
insane.
stressing at all.
No, not at all, I'm sure. Um, so, listen, Tess, I really, really appreciate you coming on the show today. I really loved hearing some of your thoughts on the preparedness side of things and some of your plan. I think that's important. I love, if before today's show somebody asked you, are you a prepared individual or a survivalist, would you would you have kind of put that together, or
Yeah,
you,
I mean,
yeah,
I work with you guys. Are you kidding
well,
me? I
that's
work in the
true. I
firearms
mean, yeah.
industry.
Well, listen, I mean,
Even
and
if
it's
I didn't want to be, but I will be honest. I mean, I mean, living big city living is totally different than living in the suburbs. And I don't know that I don't think anybody can be truly prepared for everything. But my whole goal is just to be as prepared as I can be. And every time that Dallas has had something come up, I learned something about what I could do better. Or I mean, even you said it's November 5th. It is election day, and we don't know what the future holds. But even tonight, I'm thinking about different scenarios of what might hopefully doesn't come, but if it
right.
did,
Yeah.
what I could do better and what I need. And
Yeah.
so,
One of the things that our members are big on is communication, and comms, and we understand that comms can go down, and they do a lot with ham radio.
mhm.
And we had, in fact, I was just doing the editing on one of the videos that we've already posted on the Spotify and Apple side of things, and it was one of our comms guys, and we talked a lot about ham radios and how those are great for keeping communication up when lines go down, but they also have their limits. We've got to understand that there isn't a perfect solution for everything, whether we're talking about comms, whether we're talking about preparedness and survivalism, or being a survivalist. There is not one solution for all of this. You have to try and put it all together, take what you can for each of it, and kind of put it in a bag, and understand that you may have a plan, but you also need to be very fluid, because shit's going to pop up, and you got to be able to kind of go with the flow, if you will. So,
Absolutely.
but again, Tess, thank you for coming by.
Thank you for having
Our-
me.
and we surely would love to have you back on. We would surely love to have a women only class with Tess on the ZERT
Me too.
calendar if you'd be open to it.
I would love to do that. That would
Awesome.
be great.
Awesome. All right. Well, as always, folks, thank you for spending some time with us today. It is the 5th of November. It is 5 o'clock Eastern time, and we'll be sticking to the TV tonight to see the outcome of the election. If you haven't gotten out there and voted, it's too late because this show has already aired and you missed it. And we hope that you voted and your candidate won. The candidate won. I don't know. All right, guys. Until next time, you stay safe out there. ZP002 out.